the story of the life and death of one of the greatest painters who ever lived, Michelangelo Merisi, also known as Caravaggio. In a wood behind a beach on the coast of Tuscany, there's a monument to his memory, close to where he's said to have died. But it doesn't mark a grave, and there are now those who say if it marks anything, it's a cover-up to a murder. Caravaggio was a painter who changed the way we look at the world. He lived in violent times and made many enemies. But who could have wanted him dead? That's what I was here to find out.
The story goes that in July 1610, at the age of just 39, the great painter Caravaggio succumbed to heat stroke and exhaustion somewhere on this beach. It was the end of a truly extraordinary life. Caravaggio wasn't just the most famous artist of his time, he was also a convicted killer. He'd murdered a man in Rome 6 years earlier, been sentenced to death, and he'd been on the run from the law ever since. In the course of his adventures, he'd duelled, scrapped and whored with the best of them. He'd been accused of sodomy. He'd somehow managed to escape an attack on his life by a group of armed men. All this while creating some of the most profoundly moving, spiritual paintings in the history of Western art. But what I want to know is, where's the body?
The fact that there's no record of his burial is odd in an age when receiving the last rites meant the difference between heaven and hell. People, especially great artists, didn't just disappear in early 17th century Italy, but Caravaggio did. Early accounts say he died here at Porto Ercole, that he was on his way to Rome from Naples to receive a pardon for the murder he'd committed. But he got separated from the boat carrying his possessions, including several paintings, and in a panic chased after it on foot. The most puzzling thing about this story is the geography. Caravaggio was going north from Naples to Rome, so how on earth did he end up coming here, 200 kilometers further north, to Porto Ercole? If Caravaggio hadn't been a genius, there'd be no reason to care. But I wonder if the riddle of his death might hold a key to the mystery of his work. He's an enigma, all right. Look at him in his first self-portrait, as Bacchus, god of wine. But this Bacchus is sick, the grey-green lips echoing the bloom on the grapes he holds. Who's the man behind this teasing disguise? Caravaggio painted with light. His realism has a strange, haunting quality, as if everything tells a story. But the artist's own part in that story is open to interpretation. To some, he's a homosexual revolutionary. To others, he's a profoundly misunderstood religious artist. Some see these peaches as Christian symbols. To others, they're ripe with sexual suggestion. Or maybe they're just peaches. Caravaggio's work has never been more popular or more controversial. New evidence is being discovered all the time. But where do you start when you're reopening a 400-year-old murder case? Here in Porto Ercole, they don't have much time for new theories. The old one suits them fine. I had an appointment to meet Giuseppe Lafauci, also known as Pino, architect and Caravaggio enthusiast, who's certain that Caravaggio died here. He'd said he had something to show me.
Pino.
And he did. He showed me someone's holiday home, which was once a charitable hospital, which he claimed was where Caravaggio actually died. He told me how he died, salmonella poisoning or typhoid.
Here is dead Caravaggio. Caravaggio is...
And where he thought he was probably buried, now a municipal flower bed, where he plans to build a monument to the painter.
And when you make the monument,
yes,
will make more people come to Porto Ercole.
Ah, yes, it's tourist.
It's good for tourists.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very...
Yes. Caravaggio is good for business.
Yeah. Good.
One thing he didn't show me a single document which proved that Caravaggio ever set foot here. There was, he said, the register of deaths in the old parish church. And although Caravaggio's name wasn't actually in it, it contained important evidence. He could show me. But the church was locked, so he didn't. If I'm going to take this 17th century murder mystery seriously, I should look for motive, means and opportunity. And the place for hard evidence is Rome. Caravaggio's story is like a film script, but it's definitely film noir. He's the master of light and dark, and his life's like that too, lit by flashes of information and then nothing. It's a whodunit involving unreliable witnesses, conspiracy theories, suspect evidence, and a whole cast of dodgy characters, who all seem to have an angle or an axe to grind. This wasn't going to be easy. When he came to Rome in 1592, aged 21, he was yet another Lombard painter, a northerner, an outsider. He'd lost his father and grandfather in the plague of 1577, and there are dark hints that he may have been in trouble with the law. Caravaggio came here because this was where you made your name as an artist. He became famous here, and then he had to leave forever when he killed a man called Ranuccio Tomassoni. Rome made him, and it also undid him. Welcome to Caravaggio's world. The dream of the popes at the end of the 16th century was to make Rome so magnificent that no one could doubt the Catholic faith. Pope Clement VIII was finishing off St. Peter's. Artists were in demand. It was like Hollywood, but there was only one studio in town. For the church, art was a political weapon, a Catholic weapon, against the forces of the Protestant Reformation. In a city teeming with painters, it took Caravaggio 8 years to establish himself as a real player. His big break came when he was commissioned to paint the Contarelli Chapel in San Luigi dei Francesi, the Church of the French. Caravaggio's pictures were a sensation at the time, and they still are, once you've struggled through the crowds and just as long as someone's got 500 lira to put into the slot. His big idea was to paint the stories of the Bible as if they were taking place on the Roman streets of his own time. This gave his pictures all the impact of early cinema. This scene shows Christ's conversion of St. Matthew, the tax collector, told in just one sentence in the Bible. Jesus saw a man called Matthew at his seat in the customs house and said to him, "Follow me." I love Matthew's face with its expression of, who? Me? One minute a chap's minding his business, the next he's a disciple. But although Caravaggio's made the story believable, he hasn't entirely brought it down to earth. The evening light, painted with such beautiful solemnity, is also the light of God. Opposite, in Matthew's martyrdom, Caravaggio showed he could do high drama and heroic nudity. The killer's naked, not just for style. He's been hiding amongst some innocent Christians stripped for baptism. The action is set in a Roman church, so to contemporaries, this was a scene of modern-day terrorism. A Catholic priest had recently been killed at the altar by a Protestant assassin on a suicide mission, so this was realism with a hint of reportage. It's also a prophetic picture. Caravaggio's included his own self-portrait, fleeing. As if to say, mea culpa. I, like so many others, wouldn't have done anything to help. I too would have fled with the rest of the crowd. Before long he really would be on the run, skulking in the shadows. Not as a witness fleeing, but as a murderer.